Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into the history of something so common, so everyday, that we barely even notice it. It's on your shirts, your jeans, your coats. We press it, we twist it, we sometimes lose it. That's right, we're talking about the humble button. How did this tiny fastener become a staple of our wardrobes? Well, its story is surprisingly fascinating. Our journey begins long before zippers and Velcro, back in the ancient world. The earliest objects we might recognize as buttons weren't actually used for fastening clothes. Archaeologists have found button-like discs made from shell, ivory, and stone in the Indus Valley Civilization, dating back to around 2800 BC. But these were purely ornamental, sewn onto garments as a form of decoration, a bit like ancient sequins or beads. They were a status symbol, a way to show off wealth and craftsmanship. For fastening, people relied on pins, brooches, leather ties, and simple belts. The idea of pushing a disc through a purpose-made hole just hadn't caught on yet. Similar decorative discs have been found in ancient China, Rome, and Greece, but they all served the same purpose: looking good, not holding things together. So, when did the button as we know it, the functional fastener, actually appear? For that, we have to leap forward to 13th century Germany. This is where the first real evidence of the buttonhole emerges. And you can't have a functional button without a buttonhole. It was a revolutionary invention. Suddenly, clothing could be tailored to fit the human body much more closely. Before this, garments were draped, pinned, or tied, but with buttons and buttonholes, you could create a snug fit along the torso and sleeves. This new technology quickly spread across Europe, and by the 14th century, buttons were all the rage among the nobility and the wealthy merchant class. And when I say all the rage, I mean it. It became a full-blown fashion craze. People would cover their sleeves from wrist to elbow with a dense row of buttons. A single garment could have hundreds of them. These weren't your simple plastic buttons either. They were crafted from precious metals like gold and silver and adorned with intricate designs and jewels. Owning a lot of buttons was a direct display of your wealth and status. It was the medieval equivalent of wearing designer brands. In fact, sumptuary laws were even passed in some places to regulate who could wear what kind of buttons, trying to keep the lower classes from looking too fancy. But why were men's and women's buttons on opposite sides? This tradition also started around this time. For wealthy men who often dressed themselves, having buttons on the right side was simply more convenient for a right-handed person. For wealthy women, however, it was a different story. They were typically dressed by servants. So their buttons were placed on the left side to make it easier for a right-handed maid facing them to do up the dress. It's a small detail that reveals a lot about the social structures of the time. And even though most of us dress ourselves today, that tradition has stuck around for centuries. While the rich were showing off their gold and silver buttons, what about everyone else? For the common folk, buttons were still a luxury. Most people continued to use older methods of fastening their clothes. It wasn't until the Industrial Revolution in the 18th and 19th centuries that things really changed. The Industrial Revolution was a game changer for just about everything, and buttons were no exception. New manufacturing techniques made it possible to mass-produce buttons cheaply and efficiently. Factories could churn out buttons from metal, from a material called vegetable ivory made from the tagua nut, and later from new plastics like bakelite and celluloid. Suddenly, buttons were no longer a luxury item. They became an affordable, practical part of everyday clothing for people of all classes. The button democratized fashion in its own small way. Uniforms for soldiers and workers were fitted with sturdy, mass-produced buttons. The modern shirt, with its familiar button-down front, became a standard item in a man's wardrobe. The 20th century saw the button's reign challenged by a new invention, the zipper. They are as much a part of the style as the fabric or the cut. They can be fun, classic, or avant-garde. The variety is endless. Fabric-covered buttons, toggles, snaps, four-hole, two-hole latch. One creates a different look and feel. So, the next time you button up your shirt, take a moment to appreciate this small but mighty piece of technology. It has a history that touches on class, gender, technology, and fashion. It went from a rare status symbol for the super rich to a mass-produced item in everyone's home. It survived the threat of zippers and Velcro, and it remains an essential part of our lives, quietly holding our world together, one garment at a time. It's a perfect example of how the simplest inventions can often have the most enduring legacy. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this little trip through history, don't forget to hit that like button, pun intended, and subscribe for more stories behind the everyday objects we take for granted. See you in the next video.